sometimes old hymns pop into my mind. I don't know why. But not long ago, one popped into my mind. It's the hymn Others. I remember it well from years ago. It was the last hymn we heard for the music before the service. It is an old hymn. I associate it with someone I knew years ago, a man named Ernest Harrell. I know some of y'all remember him. And he was an older man. Ernest Harrell died in 1979. And that song was sung from the balcony of the church at his funeral by Vardell Neal and Ruth Ann White. So I remember that well. Ernest Harrell was a man who did a lot for other people. He didn't do it, though, in ways that showed. He did it privately. And so he did live his life trying to do for others, and it was fitting that that hymn be used at his funeral. Now, the words of the hymn go, "Help me to live from day to day in such a self-forgetful way that even when I kneel to pray, my crown shall be for others. Help me in all the work I do to be forever sincere and true, and know that all I do for you must needs be done for others. Others, Lord, yes, others, let this my motto be. Help me to live for others, that I might live like thee." That's a neat old hymn. Now, I got thinking about that hymn, and I just sort of thought all the things in the New Testament that point us in that direction. And I thought it would be good. I just pulled out some passages that speak of how we treat others. And I thought it would be good to spend some time looking at them. These are not all, but these are the ones that came to my mind. The first two are from the book of Ephesians. And the first is, "Putting away lying, let each one of you speak truth with his neighbor." Truth in the New Testament is always associated with God. Lying is always associated with Satan. The New Testament sees lies, all lies, for whatever reason, as demonic. And in the New Testament, Satan is associated not only with explicit lies, but with underhanded dealings. All kinds of deceit. Satan is associated with trying to make things appear just a little different than they really are, covering things up, twisting the truth. All those things in the New Testament are associated with Satan. The next passage says, "Let all bitterness, wrath, anger, loud quarreling, and evil speaking be put away from you, together with all malice, and be kind to one another." Bitterness and wrath, anger, quarreling, evil speaking, a desire to see others suffer, that's malice, are to be avoided. On the contrary, we are told to be kind, tender-hearted, and forgiving. The next passage comes from Matthew, and this is straight from Jesus. "Whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets." That's very much like the familiar "do unto others as you would have them do unto you." The next comes from the book of 1 John. "If someone says, 'I love God,' but hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen, how can he love God whom he has not seen? And this commandment we have from him, he who loves God must love his brother also." That's very clear. We cannot love God unless we love others. The next one comes from the Gospel of John, again from Jesus. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. See, it's not optional. Jesus told us from his own mouth, love one another as I have loved you. The next is from Romans. Be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love. I thought that would be a good motto to adopt in our dealings with other people. Be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love. Imagine how the world would be a better place if that's how people acted toward each other. The next comes from 1 Peter. Having compassion for one another, love as brothers, be tender-hearted, be humble, not returning evil for evil or reviling for reviling. On the contrary, blessing, knowing that you were called to this, that you may inherit a blessing. For he who would love life and see good days, let him restrain his tongue from evil and his lips from seeking deceit. Let him turn away from evil and do good. Let him seek peace and pursue it. We're called to be compassionate, not just to those whom we think deserve it, but even to those whom we think do not deserve it. And we are to be humble. Humble. We are not to return evil for evil. Never. Never. We are always supposed to return evil with blessing. And in this passage again, we heard a warning about deceit. Deceit is always associated with Satan. Wherever we see deceit, don't matter whatever else you see there, but if you see deceit, you know Satan is at work there. It says we are to seek peace. We are to pursue peace. The next is from Philippians. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for his own interest, but also for the interest of others. Selfish ambition and conceit have no place in the life of a Christian. We are to esteem others better than ourselves, and we are to look after the interest of others with as much determination as we look after our own interest. Every man for himself has no place in Christianity. The next comes from Matthew 6, again direct from Jesus. If you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. I don't know how much plainer anything could be. How much plainer could Jesus have made that? But how many Christians believe that? The next is part of the one we heard from Colossians earlier. Put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another. Long-suffering means that you patiently bear abuse and mistreatment. You patiently bear abuse and mistreatment. And to bear with someone means patience in the face of difficulties, annoyances, or discomforts. That's what we're supposed to have. Patience. The next comes from James chapter 2. My brothers, do not hold the faith of our Lord Jesus Christ with partiality. For if there should come into your assembly a man with gold rings and fine apparel, and there should also come in a poor man in rags, and you pay attention to the one wearing the fine clothes, and say to him, sit here in a good place, and say to the poor man, stand there, or sit at the foot, have you not shown partiality among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Listen, my beloved brethren, has God not chosen the poor of this world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom which he promised to those who love him? But you have dishonored the poor man. That's probably the hardest one of all. Don't we respect rich and successful people more than anybody else? Don't we? Go into any church in this county and you will see the people that are most highly thought of are the rich people and the successful people. It's true. And it doesn't have to be in churches. Anything. But yet this passage states quite explicitly, plainly, that God has chosen the poor to be rich in faith. And not only that, but what might be seen as ridiculous, God has chosen the poor to be heirs of his kingdom. And this passage ends with a warning not to dishonor the poor. Not to dishonor the poor. The next comes from Romans. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Repay no one evil for evil. We've heard that before from another passage. When people mistreat us and do us wrong, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to bless them. We are specifically prohibited from repaying evil for evil. We do not get back. We do not get revenge. We do not make them pay. The next one comes from Mark. It's from Jesus. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. And right after that, Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan that illustrates that our neighbor is anyone. In other words, our neighbor is everyone. So when Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, he's telling us to love all other people just as we love ourselves. All. The next also comes straight from Jesus. Love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you. Pray for those who spitefully use and persecute you. Love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you. In the book of Galatians, Paul writes, for all the law is fulfilled in one word, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. From Galatians, we also hear the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, meekness, self-control. Now, the word that's translated there as meekness does not mean being a wimp. It means showing patience and humility. And humility means the absence of pride and arrogance. Humility means not to place yourself above others. In a biblical sense, pride means to place your shoulders above someone else's. That's what the biblical word translates as. Our shoulders don't stand any higher than anybody else's. The next comes from 1 Corinthians 16. Let all that you do be done with love. All that you do be done with love. And in a biblical sense, love is not a feeling. It's not a syrupy emotion. In a biblical sense, love is action. Love is what you do, not what you say or not what you feel. The next comes from the book of James. So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Slow to hear, swift to hear, and slow to speak. We're also supposed to be slow to wrath. There is no such thing as righteous wrath. There is no such thing as the righteous going out to slay the wicked. No such thing. There is no such thing as the righteous going out to slay the wicked, because whenever the righteous think they can go out and slay the wicked, they have crossed over out of the righteous camp and into the wicked camp. The next comes from 1 Thessalonians. Encourage each other and build one another up. So we're supposed to be encouraging toward other people. Build them up. The next comes from Jesus again. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the peacemakers, they shall be called sons of God. We are to be merciful. That means to treat others compassionately. And we are to work for peace. From the book of Titus, it says, in all things, show yourself to be a pattern of good works. Show yourself to be a pattern of good works. That means that we are to be known for doing good. Not that we do good in order to get others to notice, but that our lives are lived in such a way that others can't help but notice. We are to be a light to the world. We are to be the city on the hill that gives light to the rest of the world, so that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Here's another one from Jesus. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be put into your bosom. For with the same measure that you use, it will be measured back to you. There's the sense of karma here, that what we do comes back to us. How we treat others comes back to us. It's like a mirror. We receive back what we send out. We receive back what we send out. Here's another one from Jesus. You know that the rulers of the nations lord it over them. Those who are great exercise authority. Yet it shall not be so among you. But whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant. Whoever desires to be first among you, let him be your slave. This is the illustration of something called the transvaluation of values. Those at the bottom are the greatest. Now, if you were paying attention when I said all this stuff, I hope that you noticed that just for about every one of them, our society is the exact opposite. Our society, in other words, operates on exactly the opposite to the way we're told to live in the New Testament. That's why Christians are described in the New Testament with a word that's commonly translated as church, but really means those called out of society. That's what the word church is translated as church in the New Testament means. It means those called out of society. As Christians, we are called out of society. We are called to live in a manner that is different than society. We are called to live by different rules, by different precepts, by different standards. We are called to be different than the society around us. If your life is exactly like everybody else's life, you're not a Christian. I'm sorry. You can't be. So I want to review the things we've talked about. Here are the things we are told to avoid: lies, deceit, underhanded dealings, revenge, pride, conceit, arrogance, bitterness, wrath, selfishness. We are never to return evil for evil. We do not get even. We do not favor the rich. Here are the things we're told to do: kindness, tender-hearted, forgiving, loving to all, compassionate, tender-hearted, humble, patient, encouraging, merciful, giving, pursue peace, look out for others, bear abuse and mistreatment. Those are the things that describe the way we should live. And I wanted to remind you of the words of the song, Others, again. Help me to live from day to day in such a self-forgetful way that even when I kneel to pray, my prayer shall be for others. Help me in all the work I do to be ever sincere and true, and know that all I do for you must needs be done for others. Others, Lord, yes, others. Let this my motto be. Help me to live for others, that I might live like thee.